Chapter 11, Violet. Now hold on, Mirage interrupted, looking at Syndrome aghast. You can't have Violet help you steal a weapon from a major villain. She's a child. A super child, Violet corrected her. Well, at least till we get the nullifier. She was so delirious she laughed at her own sick joke. Syndrome joined in. Mirage ran a hand through her hair. But this is so dangerous. You barely survived when Mastermind attacked your house. Protect your brothers. The memory of her mom's voice made Violet's heart feel like it would break into a million pieces all over again. She pushed the thought aside. What are we going to do? Stay locked away our whole lives? We have school. Okay, so maybe Violet wouldn't exactly miss school. Dash certainly wouldn't. Who really needed algebra anyway? Still, she would miss seeing Tony Ryder. And what about Jack? He's just a baby. We can't live here forever and spend our lives looking over our shoulders for Mastermind to attack. Syndrome is right. If we willingly give up our powers and Mastermind knows we're normal kids who won't get in the way, we should be safe, right? Syndrome grimaced. I hate to say it, but yes. He looked at Mirage. There's just no other way to protect these kids. Mirage threw her hands up. So what? You're going to steal the nullifier, use it on yourselves, and then say, Here, Mastermind, you can have it back now. Mirage, Syndrome growled. That's enough. Violet paused. Oh, wait. That's a good point. Won't Mastermind come after us anyway for stealing the weapon? Let's tackle one problem at a time. Syndrome scratched his head and stood up, clearly thinking about this. His cape flapped in the light breeze. Get the nullifier, use it, then we deal with getting it back to Mastermind. She nodded. But Mirage is right to be worried. He stared at her forlornly. If anything happened to you three on this mission, I would never forgive myself. Something will happen if we don't get rid of these powers, Violet said hastily. I want to be rid of them. I don't even know how to control them. Syndrome cocked his head. You don't? Violet shrugged. I guess my parents didn't practice with us because being a super is illegal. My dad was more excited about seeing what we would do than my mom. She said protecting our identities was more important, she sighed. Which was hard to do when I couldn't figure out how to control when I disappeared and reappeared. You try being in middle school and disappearing when you get embarrassed, and don't get me started on the force fields. Force fields could come in handy with Mastermind, Syndrome tapped his chin, and Dash said he can run at the speed of light. I'm not sure about light, but yeah, he can run fast, Violet agreed. Mom wouldn't let him go out for the track team. Interesting, Syndrome mumbled. And you're sure the baby has no powers? Violet shook her head. Force fields, invisibility, and speed against Mastermind. I don't know, it's still risky. Was Syndrome backpedaling? No, she couldn't let him change his mind now. We don't have a choice, Violet said firmly. You said it yourself. We'll use our powers one more time so that we never have to use them again. Her parents were dead. She, Dash, and Jack were orphans. Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl, arguably the greatest supers to ever exist, were gone. The super who had held up falling bridges and the super who guided planes to safety when they were in despair had both been taken out by a supervillain because of their abilities. Violet didn't want herself or her brothers to ever have to go through that. Please, she wasn't beneath begging. You're the only one who can help us. We have to get that nullifier. You said yourself you don't know how to use your powers, Syndrome pointed out, sounding frustrated again. I can't believe your parents never prepared you for this moment. You're not a real super. How do you expect to steal a nullifier from Mastermind if you can't make a force field on command or go invisible when necessary? Maybe I'm overreaching here. I don't know if you can do this. I can, I swear, Violet insisted. You can train her, Sin. Mirage suggested. Maybe give her some lessons on how to fight. You've worked with supers for years and developed weapons to stop villains. What if you use the Omnidroid? It's the perfect training weapon. Yes! Violet liked that idea. Thank you, Mirage. Train me. Show me what to do and how to get to Mastermind. Syndrome mulled it over, pacing back and forth. I could do that. I'm a great mentor, but we don't have much time. He lamented. If Mastermind senses we're coming, or someone tipped off the agency that Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl have gone missing or Frozone, Violet added. I've tried reaching him several times and I can't. Frozone? Syndrome looked at Mirage. She held up a spy guy and showed Syndrome a picture of Uncle Lou in his supersuit. He's the one I told you about. He can freeze things and make ice out of water. I have never dealt with Frozone. We didn't call him to test the Omnidroid, Syndrome told her. But you say he's nowhere to be found? Violet shook her head. Problem. If the agency finds out multiple supers are missing, they could start digging around. Then it's just a matter of time before Mastermind panics and tries to move the nullifier to a new location. Let's go right now, then, Violet suggested. Train me, and then we'll break into Masterminds today. Syndrome held up his hands. Slow down, kid. We still need a few days to work out details. She started to protest. Training doesn't happen overnight. We need a few days at the minimum. You're safe here for now. I want you to be ready. This is going to be a dangerous mission. He glanced beyond the patio at the world beyond. Are you sure you're ready for this, Miss I don't know how to use my powers? Mirage is right. I can't protect you once you're at Masterminds. Violet stood up straighter. Her whole body burned as she thought about confronting a supervillain. I'm sure. Syndrome nodded. All right. I'm going to prepare my training facility, do some recon work on Mastermind's place, and map out the best infiltration points. I have an older version of the Omnidroid for you to square off against. In the meantime, talk to Dash. We're going to need him on this mission too if we want to succeed. But he's so young, Mirage started to say. Syndrome shot her a look and she stopped talking. Violet frowned. Mirage was right, though. It was one thing to put herself in harm's way, but she had to keep Dash and Jack safe. On second thought, no, Dash. I don't want him getting hurt. My powers are enough. Syndrome's gaze narrowed, his eyes piercing beneath their black mask. All right, then get ready. The real work begins tomorrow. Tomorrow, Violet repeated, feeling adrenaline course through her. We stop Mastermind. Without another word, Syndrome turned and walked away. Violet glanced at Mirage, who watched him leave. Okay, I guess Syndrome is going to go work. And we will head back inside so you can take care of the baby and let Dash know you're staying. And if you're staying, Mirage drummed her fingers on her hips again. I guess we should get some rooms made up. She wasn't going home again. It made sense. Mom and Dad weren't there. For a moment, Violet felt an overwhelming sense of panic, but she talked herself down. Mastermind knows where she lives. The house caught fire. Lucius is missing. You are safe here, she reminded herself. Dash and Jack are safe. Just breathe. Maybe Mirage's breathing exercise could help her again today after all. I'll need a cot, Violet told her, and baby food. A cot? Baby food? Mirage asked, sounding stressed. Yes, Violet said. I can't leave, so you'll have to get some. And clothes. We need a change of clothes or laundry. Can you wash everything? I don't even have pajamas for Jack, and he pees through everything. Mirage looked ill. If Kari were the one taking this all down, she would have told Violet, no problemo, be back in a jiff. But Mirage was clearly perplexed. Violet had to guess getting kid stuff wasn't normally part of her job requirement with Syndrome, who had his own business. Is that okay? Violet asked. She pulled the note out from Mom again and looked it over. Food, nappies, clothing. That should cover it for now. One day at a time, she told herself. First, we get rid of these powers. Mirage's expression brightened. Yes, of course. Whatever you need. She walked inside ahead of Violet. I'll just get my purse and go shopping for baby clothes and food and find a cot. Her smile was tight. You're all right here while I'm gone? Don't disturb Syndrome. I'll pop in and see him before I go. We won't bother him, Violet assured her. I'm just going to talk to Dash. Mirage looked around, somewhat unsurely, and Jack-Jack peered up at her, babbling. He raised his arms as he wanted to be picked up, and Mirage recoiled, frightened. I'll be back soon, she said. Okay. Violet watched Mirage head to the lift and disappear. Dash was still at the arcade game. He could play that thing for hours. Where is she going? Dash asked, not looking up from the blinking lights and sounds of the machine. To get baby stuff for Jack-Jack, Violet said, her heart feeling heavy again at the sight of her brother. She knew she'd have to tell him about Mom and Dad eventually, but for now, they had to stay focused. Tomorrow, after she got the nullifier and stripped their powers and were finally normal like most of the world, she'd tell him what happened, and they'd figure out what they were going to do next. It looks like Mom and Dad are going to be gone longer than expected, she said lightly, and since there was a fire at the house... Dash turned and looked at her worriedly. Did the house burn down? No. She hoped not. She could really find a way to check. Could she call Kari? That was safe to do. Mastermind didn't know Kari, right? But since Mom and Dad aren't home, we're going to stay here for a bit, all right? Dad looked pensive. Okay, is this about the bad guys? A lump formed in her throat. She stroked Dash's hair. You don't have to worry about the bad guys, she said, trying to sound confident, when she felt was mad. Mad that they were even in this situation because Mom and Dad couldn't accept losing their powers. She tried to push the thought away. No one is going to hurt you. How do you know, Vi? He asked, sounding smaller than normal. How? Violet felt her whole body warm with a dark rage she never felt before. Mastermind, you are going to pay for what you've done. You can have our powers, but you can't destroy my family. When she spoke, her voice was strong and clear. Don't worry, Dash. I'm going to make sure no one tries to hurt us ever again.